This is an important session if you're in Bitcoin. As you know, I like to look at what the big money is doing, what the whales are doing, and we track everything. So this is the first time I've actually done 4 years of cohort movements over time. And a big thank you to Kiwi out there. I see you. A lot of people talk about Bitcoin being kind of up only, but it's very interesting to see how it develops over time. And we are not far from the halving. So this is a quick update on what the whales are doing, what the shrimp are doing. We have a new animal as well. Stay tuned for that. So, and of course, if you want to amplify your intelligence, subscribe to this channel. Unique content every day. So first of all, a cohort refresher. Made a few little tweaks to this. We have a new group called the Krill. That's the 0.000 Bitcoin to the 0.1 Bitcoin. Then we have the shrimp, 0.1 Bitcoin. Actually, mods, if you could put a quick survey in the chat as to where people are, that's always fun to do. Crabs are 1 to 10 Bitcoin, octopus 10 to 100. Sometimes people include that as fish. Octopus, I just like to keep it simple. Octopus 10 to 100. Dolphin 100 to 1,000 Bitcoin. Shark 1,000 to 10,000. Whales, and I know it's a killer whale, 10,000 to 100,000. And of course, humpback 100,000 plus Bitcoin. They are the cohorts, okay? So wouldn't it be nice to be like a dolphin or something? Or even just swim with one. So a quick cycle refresher where we are right now. And if the math plays out after this, you know, the first cycle was 31,300x. Next one was 90x. The third one, it was 30x. And the most recent one was a 7x. So if that pattern of 90 to 30 to 7 continues, we should get at least a 3x this time around. But there are people more bullish than that. This is Pantera. I did share this a couple of weeks ago, and they expect a $35,000 Bitcoin by April 2024 and a new all-time high of about 148,000 Bitcoin circa late summer 2025. Good times ahead either way. 3x, 7x, whatever. Last time around, we did have weird things happen in the market space, and I'm hoping all the toxicity, all the scammers, everything else has been flushed out of the system for this time around. But it did leave a stain, and we have come out of the toughest bear market on record. This is a great chart from Econometrics and great Substack, but it shows basically the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin has fallen from 62% in 2022 to just 26% in 2023. And this is the lowest level of compound annual growth since the bear market of 2018. And during the last bull market, the Bitcoin's CAGR was about 120. So the question is, will this time be different? There are some very different things happening. Supply is scarcer. Halving impact becomes less and less. But way more is hodled than ever before. So we're going to jump into that right now. And that's why it's so important to look at. This is the trend accumulation score by cohort. The most recent chart I have goes out to basically August. And I know we're at the beginning of September, but you can see here, what is interesting is the greater than 10K whales were stacking from April, May, June, and then they stopped. And then they started distributing in July. And then the 1,000 to 10,000 whales started accumulating. And of course, below 100 Bitcoin, slight accumulation, a little bit of blue. But that was kind of interesting as to what's happening there. But let's dig in and go back over time. So I created this. It's not a Glassnode chart. It's one of mine. A simple little chart to give you a feel of exactly what's happening. Now, each year is color-coded. So blue is January 2020. Red is January 2021. Yellow, 22. Green, January 23, and orange is right now, today, the 8th of September, 2023. Now, if you look at this, basically, you know, the amount of growth in things like humpback whales have gone up. We've gone from 490,000 Bitcoin in humpback whales to over 660,000. That's good. The krill have gone from 194,000 Bitcoin to 315,000. Shrimp, 650 to over nearly 1.1 million Bitcoin. Crab, 1.6 to 2.15. Octopus fish, 4.42 to 4.48. Only slight growth there. Dolphins, 3.58 to 3.86. Sharks, 4.79 to 8.9, just only up slightly, and whales 2.35 to 2.27, down slightly. Now, the key thing about this is how they do move around at different times in the markets. That's why I like to anchor on 2020, because we're basically going into the 2020 year and to see exactly how they disperse Bitcoin. So if you look at this again and you look at what the whales did, they shrank a lot. The humpbacks basically gave it all back in 2021. They got out of the market. So that's the big takeaway from this little chart, is that little red box at the bottom for the humpback whales. And it's a little bit corresponding. You know, the whales shed a little bit, but the sharks actually grew in 2021. But that's kind of, you know, for us to play our game. You know, history doesn't always repeat, but they say it rhymes a lot too. So a better visual of the cohorts over time. And remember as well, we've gone from about 18 million Bitcoin to nearly 19.4 million Bitcoin this time. So that means obviously the supply is growing, so it's being distributed. But how it's being distributed and stacked is what's very interesting to me. So this is a clearer picture of exactly how you can see development happening. Let's start on the left with the krill. They've gone up. The shrimp have gone up a lot. Crab have gone up a lot. Octopus fish only slightly. That's the 10 to 100 Bitcoin cohort. Dolphin up. Now we see the sharks. They are just slightly down, so I gave it a red arrow. And the whales are also slightly down, so I gave them red arrow too. But the humpback whales more than made up for the whale loss. And that's the important thing. You've got to take the number of holders times the average amount of Bitcoin to calculate how much is in every single cohort. And I did that for you, so you don't have to. But let's look at the Krill evolution first. These are the 0 to 0.1 Bitcoins. And what's stunning about this is the amount, the sheer numbers. We have people with between kind of a fraction of a Bitcoin, call it 0.00001 to 0.001. That's 25.5 million of these addresses. Then the 0.001 to 0.01 is 11.5 million. The key is we went from 14 million to 25 million, from 7 million to 11.5 million, from 5 million to nearly 8 million. And the total across these, what I call the super krill, those with less than 0.1 Bitcoin, there's 44.96 million addresses. And that's up from 26 million addresses since January 2020. So interesting to look at. In addition, the average bag size by cohort, here you can see it's also interesting to calculate. The average bag size for each krill is 0.007 Bitcoin. Shrimp is 0.31 Bitcoin. And this kind of helps. The reason I share all this is it helps you plan, set your next goal, your next target. You know, if you are a shrimp and you've got a quarter of Bitcoin, try to get to 0.31. I'll explain why that's important in a few slides as well. Crabs average about 2.5 Bitcoin exactly. Octopus fish, 31.6 Bitcoin. Dolphins, 279. Sharks, 2,455. Whales, 22,000. And humpbacks, 165,225 Bitcoin. That's more than Sailor has at MicroStrategy. Now, the bag size evolution, this is a log scale chart, but you can see the numbers as to how they are so steady over time. This blew me away. The average holdings did not change much by all these different cohorts over the last 4 years, which I thought was very impressive. But it shows there's, you know, a little bit more Bitcoin in the supply, 1.4 million approximately, but it's so evenly distributed, and there's more players in the market achieving all of these targets too. Now, address count by cohort as of September 2023, we talked about the 45 million krill, the 3.4 million shrimp, 860,000 crabs, 140,000 octopus, call it 14,000 dolphins, 1,900 sharks, 103 whales, and only 4 humpback whales. And the reason that's important is for this calculation, the average Bitcoin holdings by cohort, again, as we covered below, as of September, as you can see here. So again, find out where you are and plan accordingly. Now, let's go to the average wealth in US dollars based on the Bitcoin price today for all these cohorts. And the Bitcoin price I chose was $25,900 on the nose. And we are actually $9 beneath that level right now. So the average wealth by cohort, krill is $183, shrimp $8,000, crab $65,000, Octopus 820,000, dolphins 7.2 million, sharks 64 million, whales average bag holding size in today's dollars 573 million, and the average humpback is $4.3 billion. And we know there are old, whales and everything else from way back when, and they've lost their keys, lost their coins, or sadly they're no longer with us. So remember, there's a lot of lost coins that are simply gone forever. I estimate that's about 5 million of the total. And of course, if you have no time, you can subscribe to the Substack written by our community writers. It's 12 cents a day for publication. Things like this will all be summarized, and it's always good to reference to. I found it easier to find things that I did. I actually search my Substack for my slides. I found it quicker anyway. If you think I said something 3 months ago, say, what was it? Well, it's a great way to find out exactly what I said. Now, example bag sizes here you see Bitcoin owned by Michael Saylor, 152,800. I reckon he's been adding lately. I can't prove it, but I guarantee you it's north of 155, 156,000 at this stage because they issued $750 million of equity. I can see that happening with the price of MicroStrategy falling, and they've been buying Bitcoin with the proceeds, or at least the majority of the proceeds. So watch this space carefully. In addition, let's look at the cohort share of Bitcoin September 2023, another visual of how big the cohorts are. So let's start with the krill. They have 1.6% of the bag of the supply, shrimp 5.5%, crab 11%, octopus fish 22.9%, dolphins call it 20%, at about 3.86 million Bitcoin. Sharks are the biggest cohort right now, 24.1%. So watch them carefully, and the octopus fish and the dolphin. If they start distributing aggressively, that's going to bring down a lot of price pressure on the price of Bitcoin. Whales 11.7% and humpback whales 3.4%. So people talk about, the Bitcoin whales have a lot of the supply. They actually don't anymore. It's octopus, dolphins, and sharks. They have the lion's share of the actual supply right there. In fact, it's very interesting that crabs and whales nearly own the same amount at 11%. So if you like numbers. Now here's another breakdown of some might find this scary, but it's just data. So the top 2017 addresses owned 40% of Bitcoin. But remember, some of those addresses are Grayscale, MicroStrategy, etc. So that's a big part of it. Many people own shares of GBTC and MicroStrategy. Then the top 157,000 holders own 59% of Bitcoin. The top 1 million holders own 93% of Bitcoin. Considering there's 8 billion people on this earth and 1 million addresses own 93%, it's pretty stunning. And then the bottom 48 million own 3% of Bitcoin, but they're growing and they're stacking as they can. And the top 1%, you need more than 3.5 Bitcoin today. And the top 2%, you need greater than 1.51 Bitcoin as we go forward. Now, this is an updated wealth pyramid, what it would cost today. I know people that actually weren't in Bitcoin. They saw this and they said, I want to be in X percentile. And they just made the purchase. So to be in the top 5%, you only need to spend $3,458. To be in the top 2%, you need to spend $39,260, or you need to have more than 1.51 Bitcoin. 91,000 to be in the top 1% of all Bitcoin wealth holders, and more than 3.5 Bitcoin. Top 0.5%, 6.8 Bitcoin, 176,000. And of course, to be in the top 0.1%, you need more than 21.5 Bitcoin, and that's 559,000. These prices, these ratios vary all the time, but we like to keep track of them here. Now, shout out to the team at Blockware Solutions. They put together this great analysis. I did a video on it on the number of whole coiners and reference their Substack and everything else. But here you can see how 1.5 billion addresses only result in about 36,800 Bitcoin unique users, total entities. So if you take this data, you can actually extrapolate the number of whole coiners on Earth, which is super interesting. So because of that, the number of addresses with more than one Bitcoin is 31,985. But many people have many addresses. Therefore, part 2 adds up to 203,000 people. And I covered all this and all the math behind it in a detailed way in a video. We can add it here after in case you missed it. It's fascinating. but there will never be more than 235,200 whole coiners on Earth. And since day one, I've been stressing how important it is to have one whole Bitcoin, because that will be very rarefied air in the future. Now, some more statistics. According to the Federal Reserve Survey, you've got all the minimum net worths. You need to be in the top 1% of populations in the US. You need about 10.3 million. In China, you need about $1.6 million. India, you need $100,000 to be in the top 1%. But the key about this is to be in the top 1% of Bitcoin holders. Today, it only costs $91,000. You don't have to spend $10.3 million. And in the future, I believe Bitcoin wealth will do very well. Again, there's always the 1% chance Bitcoin could go away. But over the next 10 years, it's going to be very interesting to watch. And remember as well, another statistic, the amount of Bitcoin you need to have more than the average net worth of any human on Earth is 0.23 of a Bitcoin. Very, very important. That will mean you have more than the average net worth of every human on Earth, which is big. Just a small amount of Bitcoin. And remember as well, we are still extremely early. Here you see the total amount of addresses I took for this illustration, 49 million, of which 45 million of them are Krill, divided by the population, 7.94 billion, multiplied by 100 equals 0.6%. So if you even own a tiny little bit of Bitcoin, you are ahead of 99.4% of the population of this planet, which I think is a stunning statistic. And if Bitcoin was evenly distributed to every human on the world, they would have 243,000 Satoshis each, which is worth about $63 today, or that's 0.00243 Bitcoin per person. Again, all of these little targets should be in your plan to try and achieve level 1, level 2, level 3, depending on who you are, where you are, and what your goals are. And that's why I do this as well. And remember, final conclusion, Bitcoin adoption is going up. Price will go up the more it's adopted. It's called Metcalfe's law. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And we have a big halving coming up in April 2024, which will be very exciting too. Again, once a little bit of hype comes in, once the spot ETF is approved, money will flow in. It'll be on the newspapers and the TV all the time. If anybody still watches TV, I'm not even sure. And the price will go up, especially when the supply is cut in half. Absolutely cut in half. And if the demand remains equal, we're going to triple. And that's just mathematics. So thank you all for being here. And big thank you to everybody on Patreon. By the way, we do have a few seats open. So come in and see why it's the biggest finance community on the planet and the best. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the mods in the chat. Hope you enjoyed the show. Happy Friday. It's the weekend. Yay. Bye.